Welcome back. Now, the price of red meat could become more expensive for many households. This as the country has been battling to contain or permanently contain the outbreaks of foot and mouth disease for several years. The foot and mouth disease is a common among cattle, sheep and goats and is characterized by fever and blister-like sores on the tongues and lips. Joining us now, I'd like to welcome Dr. Berry Mutowembwa, who is the research veterinarian at the Transboundary Animal Disease Laboratory of ARC-Ondersterpoort Veterinary Research Campus. Dr. Mutowembwa, thank you so much for joining us here on News in Focus on Hilaal TV.
Thanks for having me along.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Doctor, let's start off, of course, with, I think, the simple explanation of foot and mouth disease. This is not a new phenomenon. It's been in the country for quite some time.
Foot and mouth, it is a viral disease, which is, like you mentioned in your introduction, manifested as blisters, which normally when you first see the animals, you see salivation, and the animals are feverish without any appetite. And when you are in dairy setups, it really is bad because there is a drastic reduction of milk production. So that salivation that comes is as a result of those blisters that are on the tongue. And the salivation is as a result of the animal trying to soothe the tongue because of the blisters that are on the tongue. Also, that what is common as well, or what is commonly manifests as, is limping, because it also causes blisters on the hooves. That's where the name comes from, foot and mouth disease. So it's causing blisters on the hooves and on the mouth, the tongue and the mouth. Yes.
Dr. Mutowembwa, let's touch on the actual way in which farmers identify it. Now, obviously, you need to do thorough research in investigating the animal. But at that moment, when is it that, number one, they pick it up, and number two, they realize that either this animal needs to go for quarantine or it needs to be treated?
So, for those that don't know, foot and mouth is one of those diseases that are referred to as controlled diseases. So, controlled animal diseases, in our case, are diseases that are required by law, that if you detect or suspect it, you have to report to the nearest state veterinarian. So it's the state veterinarian that will then come and do further investigations when the disease set in on a farm. So the suspicion, like I said, with the blisters or the animal limping, then the state vet has to be called in immediately. So sometimes there are many other diseases that you might, or that might appear or present in a similar way, but for that to be cleared, it is the state veterinarian who has that duty to come and collect samples and do physical examinations to ensure that it is actually not foot and mouth, or rather to confirm that it is the disease. So this is a disease that once you suspect, it is actually a requirement that the farmer has to inform the nearest state veterinarian.
And of course, when the veterinarian, who you yourself are, what then is the treatment for these animals? Because I think a lot of the concern is obviously if they do get vaccinated, what's the quarantine period? And that, of course, affects the supply chain of red meat across various retailers.
So foot and mouth is a viral disease, and there is no specific treatment for foot and mouth. Once an animal has been diagnosed to be having foot and mouth, it's like I mentioned earlier, the state veterinarian has to then confirm, collect samples and send to the laboratory. And once the laboratory has confirmed that there is an outbreak of foot and mouth, they then come up with a plan to isolate the area. So it won't only be the farm that is affected, it will be areas that are around that particular farm. But in this case, the farm has to take all directives from the state veterinarian. So the farmer in this case, like I said, it's a controlled disease. it's the duty of the state veterinarian to bring the disease under control. When it comes to vaccination, it depends on the extent of outbreaks, whether the outbreaks is widespread, because once the state vet takes over the management of the disease, they then ascertain how much spread has occurred, and if there isn't much spread, the quarantine of that particular area won't be as long as compared to when the disease is widespread. So all that is done at the is done by the state veterinarian.
Dr. Mutowembwa, I want to touch on the spread of the disease. So is it simple that if a cow gets affected, or one goat or one sheep gets affected, that the entire herd is going to be affected? Is that a natural cause when it comes to foot and mouth disease?
So foot and mouth, traditionally, we know it as one of those very highly contagious diseases. So once you have one animal that has been introduced and is sick, it's one of those that can easily spread to the rest of the herd. There are different ways in which the virus can spread from that particular infected animal to the others. So the first one is direct contact. So you have infected animals salivating, and they've got these blisters that are releasing lots and lots of viruses. So if there are naive animals close to those animals, they can easily get contaminated through that direct means. Also, indirectly, you can have animals that have been in a particular area, and you have equipment that has been contaminated. You have vehicles that have been working in that particular area and get contaminated. And when they move, it's okay together with the clothing of the individuals that are handling the animals. When then move from that one infected area to another area, animals can easily get infected. And I must say at this point that this is a virus that really can survive if the conditions are permitting for quite a long time. So you can actually potentially spread the virus via your equipment and vehicles to other naive animals or susceptible animals in the vicinity.
You speak of conditions. What type of conditions will allow for the spread of this virus? What conditions would not allow for the spread of the virus?
So it's a bit tricky to really come up with like this is the best condition. But if it's moist and if it's like the weather it is at this point in time, it's nice and cool, the virus tends to persist for a longer time as compared to when the place is dry and the sun is scorching. It won't really survive much longer. But when you're looking at like maybe, for example, vehicles that have been contaminated and equipment that have been contaminated with manure, and that moisture still persists and that lower temperatures still persist, the virus can actually survive under those conditions for a much longer time.
Dr. Mutowembwa, one final question. I know there's massive concern when it comes to the price of red meat. I know you're not in retail and you don't determine, obviously, the price of it, but South Africans, should they be concerned, or should we just trust the process? Of course, government is rolling out vaccines. I know you're not involved when it comes to that. They're rolling out vaccines at the moment, but should there just be a sense of calm when it comes to that? Because obviously red meat is enjoyed by most South Africans.
When it comes to this question, I think the competent authority would actually be in a better position to say with certainty. But what I know for a fact at this point is the outbreaks are in localized areas. There's too many other feedlots in other provinces that can still supply meat to the country. So I don't think, but that's my opinion, there is a need to panic at this point. But like I mentioned, the Director Animal Health is at best placed to answer that particular question.
Dr. Mutowembwa, absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
That's Dr. Berry Mutowembwa, research veterinarian at the Transboundary Animal Disease Laboratory at the ARC-Ondersterpoort Veterinary Research Campus. Well, that's all we have for you here on News in Focus. From myself, Ross Patel, and the rest of the team in Johannesburg. Tomorrow is Talking Point from 8 to 9. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.